Hello, conspiracy players. On today's episode, we're joined by the lovely Brandy Renee. She's here to tell us about all the realms she's traversed through lucid dreaming, meditation, and just being a part of this earthly existence. She and I have become fast friends, and it's been a real treat talking with her. Unfortunately, when we recorded this episode, I was having some technology issues. Zoom did reach out to me to let me know my account had been hacked, and after changing my password and re-downloading it, it seems to be working fine again. However, that was after this interview, so there's a few glitches. Mainly on my end of the conversation. You'll hear some delay and some echoed feedback. At times, I almost sound like a robot in need of an upgrade. Luckily, Brandy's end of the conversation is mostly intact, and she's the one you're going to want to hear anyway. We hope you enjoy it. We're looking forward to doing more of these types of episodes that explore the unknown and the paranormal realms, as the shady world of political shenanigans and deep state fuckery can get a little stale. And while we do enjoy exploring it, there's a whole other side to this crazy world we live in, and we think Conspiracy Playtime should be just as much about play as it is conspiracy. So without further ado, welcome Brandy Renee.
Like, oh my god, everything's a script, everything is like written and it's all a game. The only thing I couldn't figure out is how can I get ahead of it.
Okay, so yeah, I just, because of my microphone issue, I hadn't heard yet, but so you're saying when you're like 5, you kind of just realized there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
And your mom had a book about spells, so I'm taking it you weren't raised in a Christian type household.
I was actually raised very anti-religion. They was like, no, religion is what comes in and eradicates people. They thought it was a sham, it's a money gimmick. You know, that's how you get touched. So don't be around that. Yeah. Which when we moved further down to the South, boy, that was a game changer for making friends, because they were like, oh, you don't go to church, so I can't hang around you. And I'm like, whatever, okay.
Okay, so you kind of touched on the dreams a little bit, and I've listened to a few of your interviews in the last week or two, and I kind of really wanted to talk because it's one of my main interests is dreams, and we haven't really talked about it on this podcast much. So what do you think is going on when people dream? Is this other realms? Is this kind of just your brain playing tricks? A little bit of both?
I think, yeah, it is a little bit of both. It all connected together, because you do have to kind of, anytime that you're going somewhere new, you have to have a kind of roadmap to get there, and your brain's going to have to figure out how it's going to bridge that gap. So you're going to have to try to make sense of things in your life and in your mind and get those two in sync, so that when you do get introduced to some things that may be a little bit too real for you, you're not just going to immediately go to fear. Because as soon as you go to fear, guess what pops up? Fear. And it's going to scare the shit out of you. And you're going to go back into, your dream la la land and think it's all fake again. But there are there's some other places where it's realer than sitting like right here. It seems realer than sitting right here.
Yeah, I mean, I have dreams that sometimes it's like, oh, I'm back in my childhood house, except for things are a little bit different, and it's like a place I always go. But then I have dreams where, yeah, like you're saying, the reality of it, and I oftentimes can't grasp it. Like, it'll hit me later on in the afternoon that I dreamt about it. I don't know if that happens. One, to remember your dreams pretty well.
Well, what's funny is my last dream. I just had it a couple days ago. This is how you usually know when you're engaged in a lucid dream at best, but whatever different dimension or place you're at is. I wake up and I'm immediately in this like 80s themed mall, this 80s type mall, and a woman turns around, an older woman, and looks directly at me. and she's the only one. So when she makes eye contact with me, I knew, I was like, okay, game on, I'm engaged here. So I immediately start searching. And that's the first thing I start doing is when I go into these dreams, it's look, I read everything, I touch everything, I observe everything I can to get the information in. And that includes, like, I will ask people questions, talk to people, because you also get a feel of what can you ask and what's going to get you kicked out of that dream, because there can be some situations that, no, don't ask or don't act out of character, because it will kick you from the dream. So I kept exploring through, and I went back to what seemed to be like a coworker's house. And I looked at her and I said, this is going to sound crazy. I said, what is my name? And she said round globe, and she showed me this circle. And I was like, no, my name is Brandy. And I was like, and this is going to sound crazy, but I'm asleep right now. You're in my dream. We're having a dream. And she started morphing us, like, see, and right now you're going from a female to a male, and now you're going back to a man. And she just kept going with the script. And I was like, okay, got an NPC here. They just, but if you would have said that to another active player, you would have been kicked from the dream immediately.
Okay. Yeah, it's really weird sometimes when you're in the middle of a dream, and it can be a dream where you're even like a sex dream, and the person changes. And it's just, and you wake up going, what the fuck?
I feel like, why did you change? I don't, those are even the worst type, because you don't know who it is you're going to be having sex with. And it's like, why am I doing this? What are you taking from me? And I've been really great because I used to have those a lot. And I've been really great now at just being like, no, this is not what I'm here for. What do you want? Or I will, change the scenery, because I know now, I'm like, no, change of scenery, and it just changes. That's why I said same thing with fear. If you go in there and you're going to be afraid of anything, that thing is going to pop up. So until you learn how to transmute the situation, control the situation, you're always going to be a victim, even in your dream.
Have you seen the movie, I think it's 2005 or so, Waking Life? And it's basically just all about dreams.
I don't think so.
So they actually developed for this specific movie. It's a Richard Linklater film, and it's crazy because at the beginning of the film, this teenage kid car, and then he's just in this dream state, and he keeps meeting people and having where he'll just be like a fly on the wall and looking in on other conversations. And in this dream, he comes across a lucid dreamer, and he tells dreaming, try to turn the light on and off, or try to look at a clock, and you'll know if you're dreaming or not. Have you ever had any experience with that?
Well, I remember the first time when I started looking at letters, because I was like, why don't you try to read? Because usually when you go to read anything in your dreams, it looks so stupid.
Okay.
And, it's just a bunch of symbols and all this other stuff. And I was like, that's funny. Why would it just be like that? I was like, no, it can't be like that. And that's when I started being able to actually read. Like, it was actual words. And after I got that, I was actually able to start getting like phrases and terms coming out of my dreams, which is weird enough. But then I started I was introduced to this other YouTube channel, Look Out for Charlie, about how they can send tones and words and stuff on carrier waves, kind of like advertising for free, just on carrier waves straight into your brain, especially while you're asleep. And I was like, okay, so is this what I'm getting now? Am I getting interference? Because I think it was like in August. It was just one of those normal dreams where you're just like a day off dream, just like playing in your dream. And I come out of it and it said January 13th, answer the phone. I'm like, what? Okay, let me write that down. Is it going to be relevant? I don't know. Was it relevant to me? I don't know, but January 13th, we'll find out.
So is that this upcoming January?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. Well, I'll have to talk to you on I'll have to talk to you on January. I mean, we could talk about dreams all day long. I think that I think that it's a very interesting topic, but I also want to because some of the stuff you were talking about on In My Patriots podcast with meditation,
Mhm.
I was really fascinated, and it was like right as I was starting to kind of wonder what you were going to say next on that topic, the top switch. So I kind of want to ask you about what's it? Is it binaural beats? Is that how you
Oh,
say it?
yeah, yeah. The
So you want to
binaural beats.
explain that a little bit? Because I had never heard of that before. I listened
Oh my
to
God.
Bonobo, and they have an
Yeah,
album. Have you
I
listened to that?
love them. Yeah,
So
I do.
do they use binaural beats on that album, or is it just the name of it?
Well, I
Explain what
think,
binaural beats are
oh,
first, because
binaural beats is just like you hear one tone in one ear and a different tone in the other, which is the two beats, and your brain meets them in the middle. So it weaves them together, So you're listening to it, and it can give you all different kinds of experiences. Like you can get it visually, or I like the ones you can feel. That's how I know which ones I want to listen to. And I'll save those because I'll have a certain feeling. Like I'll get a little tingly in my head or in my spine. Those I love, especially the ones that you can like feel go in a 360 around you. I love those because it kind of engages everything. So you have to feel them out because some of them will just be tones. Some of them will bring music in. Some of them will have chanting and stuff in it, and I would beware of that because you don't know what they're saying, and subliminal messaging is a thing. And YouTube, especially, you don't know what they're putting in it. So you always have to be
okay,
wary of that.
so you get some of these online and like YouTube has binaural beats.
Yeah, so I keep them in libraries. Like I have some that to go to sleep with, some that they say are out of body experience, and I can tell you that that's not going to happen. You can feel like whatever, but it's mainly if you go to sleep with them, it just kind of your mind will kind of go into a deeper sleep with it instead of you waking up every couple of seconds or like every hour, because that can happen too. So it keeps you in a deeper sleep longer, which gives you more time to play because you got to be in that really deep sleep. But like you said with the kid checking the clock, that's also a good time to start with your cues, because I did hear about stuff like that, especially even in meditation. You have to have like that grounding thread where where you are even in your mental space, so that if you ever want to pull out of it, you know how to go back, because you don't want to get lost anywhere. So the
What
binaural beats
happens if you
help
get
you.
lost?
It'll Some people just get freaked out, like you've heard the whole term of meditation, all that's evil. It'll make you hear things and see things, and that's not saying that it may not happen, because if a person has never closed their eyes and just sat there, if you hear something and it's not your voice and it's just coming through somewhere, you're not going to exactly be friendly with it. You're not going to think maybe it's a thought you need to listen to. You're going to think, oh God, a demon's trying to kill me, or now I'm possessed. Save me, Jesus. So you're going to jump out of it. And it could make you not want to ever go back to that space to try to join those parts of yourselves together, because the path isn't always the smoothest when you start.
So I've read essays about the Kundalini meditation. Injured. Have you ever heard anything about that? Like they'll have spinal injuries or something. This is an essay I read like 10 years ago, and I couldn't tell if this was like trying and keep people away from Kundalini, or if it was a legitimate experience someone had. So I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
I have, because when I started reading into it, I even went as far as to even ask, reach out to so-called experiencers, or people who have gone through it, being like, can this happen and you not have known it has happened? Can you have had that experience and never known it? And they were like, yeah, you can just have where certain channels are open, and you're not necessarily going to know if you've opened up other channels, because it's just an experience in your life. And if you are used to having different experiences, you're not going to attribute those experiences as being something different than other people. It's just a perspective thing. But if you just blow open an energy gap in your body by accident, it's not, that would be like just grabbing a hold of a live wire. It's not the safest thing, especially if you don't know how to ground yourself or somehow pull yourself out of that. So I could see an energy being shot up. Yeah, it could. I've seen people do the whole movements situation, where they just have uncontrollable movements until they finally come down from the energy. But even, psychotic break, I could see that happening. Just even, I'm in a mental health field, so I've read some situations where I'm like, these people are tapped in like hell, but they just don't know it. And it could be because of something like that, because any type of hardcore drug use can open you up to so many different things, and if you don't know what it is you're coming in contact with, or what you've opened yourself up to, you're not going to be able to defend yourself while you're in it. You're just going to let it consume you, and it's going to drive you crazy.
Yeah, I've had a lot of psychedelic experiences with like the natural psychedelics, where I'll let myself just go, and that kind of scares me into like retreating. But one time I did do LSD, and I'm not a fan of LSD for this reason. And I didn't even know about MK Ultra and all that bullshit back then. This is like when I was in my early 20s. But like on mushrooms, I feel like I'm in an open field and it's all good. And with the LSD, I felt like I was in a filing cabinet. And this voice kept saying to me, don't be in this place. And then I started like reading books about astral projection and the CIA and all that stuff. And I remembered that acid trip, and I was just thinking to that, like, are they watching that realm, or is there people that are just kind of hanging out there?
Yes. There's the same place that you go to when you're meditating, when you have certain experiences, and when you're dreaming. They are the same places. And CIA, FBI, these other guys, they can read the energy. They can tell where it's coming from, how many people are in it, all the time. So yes, they know, and they can come directly into your dreams. And they can ask you things in your dreams, and you just tell them all kinds of information. They can make you agree to stuff that you would never agree to. And when you wake up, you don't even know, especially if you are not a lucid dreamer, you're probably getting taken advantage of way more than we even know of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never done LSD simply because, they told, even as, a younger kid, like my mom, her sisters, brothers, they went all in. So they would be like, nah, that one right there is not a good one. That one's the hard come down. You never see anything great there.
Well, and just the history of it. I mean, it came directly out of some Nazi stuff, and then our scientists took it over in the 50s, and they understood. They understood, like, I mean, Tim Malaria, you sent me that link to the Winona Ryder and Tim Malaria connection.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did an episode about MK Ultra and LSD, and I knew little things about it, but I didn't meant, and like I have no interest in touching LSD ever again. Like I might eat mushrooms down the road when I'm camping or something, or smoke some DMT, but I don't think I have any interest in acid. It's just it seems tainted. Even if you get good stuff, it's still a realm that they have control over.
Yeah, it is. And
you know, the same might be for other psychedelics. I don't know if you have an opinion on that. I mean, the way in the mainstream and the mental health field, as in microdosing during sessions. And I mean, in Oregon, where I live, they're right on the cusp of making it mainstream, and just do a psychotherapist's office and take small amounts of ketamine or psilocybin.
like I wish I would have done it sooner, but I just recently started doing the microdosing. And with that, I could say that you're not feeling any part of it. You're more alert and your thinking is more clear, and you can't do it even every day, and it has to be under half a milligram. So it's or half a gram. It's not much at all. But there's nothing to say that they can't. I guess ethically they could make somebody sign a waiver and say, hey, I won't tell anybody what you say on this, but still you're altering that person's perception and then telling them to trust you. So God knows what's going to end up coming out of it. And if they think for a second that you're a threat, they're going to report that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, psilocybin in general is very therapeutic, but I don't need that middleman. In fact, I think that would ruin my trip. Like, I'm the kind of guy, like if I'm out with friends and we all dose up, I wander off alone when it's starting to come on heavy. I just don't want any outside influence, and you never know which stupid friend's going to do something that just totally affects the direction of your experience. So I've learned to just kind of like, I'll come back when I'm kind of sitting with it, but I would be comfortable sitting in an office with a shrink. And
No, that's like being high in high school. It's like,
oops, smoked a little too much at lunch.
Yeah, it's just going to stop everything to a screeching halt and be like, everything in my body is screaming no. So I don't know how that happens. So they have to get them at a certain point to where these people still want drugs and they're not caring what kind of drugs.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, people rush to the pharmacies anyway. When this floodgate opens with the psychedelic psychotherapy, I mean, and I honestly think that under the right guidance, it could be a very beneficial thing. But I don't trust the Western medicine and the government. It's just like when people want socialized medicine. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy Dore. So I agree with like 90% of everything that got over his he wants socialized medicine. After he's railing against the government on every other issue, he's just thinks that they'll be okay doing that, and I don't get that.
No, because you're looking at it right now with them legalizing marijuana everywhere. Okay, we've got GMO food. What do you think you're going to be smoking?
Right. It's like what the tobacco industry did to a plant that is medicine in every ancient culture, Yeah, I could see that happening with marijuana. I mean, as I sit here smoking a pre-rolled joint that I bought at a dispensary. Thing about where I live is like everybody's non-arms, but then the cartel is also moving up here. It's quite an issue because they see a gold mine too.
Well, the cartel's going to end up with the organic stuff.
Right. No,
yeah.
I mean, if we legalize drugs, which a libertarian leaning, so I don't think it's a horrible idea, but the cartel will move on to avocados or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's what they did.
They're not going to leave. It's just there's going to be a market that they will seize, and
it'll be herbal supplements.
Right. No, I think that's a huge market, and I mean, look at like even in the conspiracy theory circle, alternative media. That's what you see advertised. It's always vitamins, supplements. I mean, Alex Jones marks up vitamin D 5,000%, like calls it super apocalypse vitamin D, survivalist vitamin D.
Or the neurotropics.
Yeah.
those are real. They're gonna be like, oh no, we can really get them with that because these are supposed to, heighten your brain synapses and all. So yeah, they're gonna go for that. So I think any way in that they can get, they're taking it. And that's every arm. So when they say it's an octopus, oh yeah, it's an octopus, but it's got more than 8 legs. It's every angle, any angle. If they catch it open, they're going to take it.
Right.
So if you don't grow it, you might as well. It's like taking a risk, and we all take those risks.
I mean, I drink a bit, and alcohol is the worst thing you can do to your brain. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind about that. But like, I wish I could, and I do think I'm working my way towards it. But meditation for me is something that I've kind of resisted, and I know that I need to do it. But that's why I want to talk with people like you, because I keep making excuses for myself, like, oh, I don't have enough time, or it's just another thing that's gonna consume me. But I think it's a lot healthier than the stuff that has consumed me. So
well, I will say that after I started meditating, like my body, which they do say your body knows a lot better than you do, and that I will say that my body knows a lot better than me, because when I started meditating, the alcohol was just immediate headache, couldn't drink. My hand started swelling up, and my body was like, no, try it again. I'm gonna do it again, try it again. So now I can't drink. I can't drink at all. I used to be able to kill a bottle of Sailor Jerry's. That was my favorite. But not no more. I can't do anything with it. So I mean,
do you even miss it?
Sometimes I'm like, wow, I used to have fun, but then I remember feeling like I missed everything the next day. Like, you were halfway drunk. You weren't engaged in anything. You've probably missed a lot. So I started feeling guilty because I wasn't engaged in my own activities. I was just floating through it. So I don't miss that part of it. So it did catch up with me. I was like, oh yeah, I remember the guilt feeling. But if you like to wander off by yourself when you're having, your own experiences, then yeah, meditation is exactly like that. It's being in your own experience. And that's why I liked the binaural beats, because I just sitting there, not listening to anything. I mean, I would get a twitch, something would itch. Maybe my mind would tell me it would itch. I would start thinking of the stuff I'm probably supposed to do, haven't done. What time is it? Blah, blah, blah. So I was like, no, your brain's going to need something. So I went to the binaural beats, and that way I had like some place for my mind to go. So while I'm listening to the beats, it kind of gives me that something to focus on, if it's just even the beat, so that I'm not thinking of all the trillion things outside of myself. So it's more like a storybook inside of your own mind.
Okay. See, I've had that experience when I've tried meditation in the past. I can't. And the more you try to like not pay attention to your thoughts, in my experience, the harder it is. But when I listened to you again on the NY Patriot show, where you were talking about your initial experiences with it, and then NY Patriot also chimed in saying it was the same for him when he started. Like, I think there's a preconceived notion about meditation that you're just everything off. And is that possible, or is there a state that you can get to like that?
I guess that there are people who could shut everything off. It just seems like a very rare thing to me. I don't think it's more like you can hear the chatter, but you need to pick out the pieces that aren't the chatter. Because sometimes you can get words or thoughts or images that come to you that are just you can pick them out from the chatter in your mind, where they seem louder or they seem more vivid. And you're like, wait a minute, okay, that's something I need to pay attention to. And the more you do it, the easier that stuff comes through. And you can pick those out. And that's when you just like a dream journal, you start writing this stuff down, because you do get like bits and pieces of stuff. And it never made sense to me. But then a couple months or a year back, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm figuring this stuff out. It was a key that I needed that I just ended up researching down that line, and it pops in my head. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, look at my journal here. Now it makes sense. So when I would just like start small, even like the Wim Hof, like that is awesome. That feels great. And
Do you do the cold stuff?
well, I can say that because it's easier for me to jump in a cold shower just because of the military, because we never had hot water. There was no hot showers. And so I'm right in the middle, medium, cold, warm. I can do that. Now, if I'm not jumping in no ice bath. I'm not doing that.
Well,
I'm not.
his stuff's more about breathing, right?
Yes.
And then he does incorporate like
And
the
then,
cold
yeah.
therapy. So
But
you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
The breathing is awesome. The first couple times I did it, I noticed, I was like, does this make everybody sweat? Because it made me sweat. I was like, I'm sweaty. It is getting hot in here. I was sweaty. And then it makes you want to yawn too. But that is normal. He was like, yes, this is normal. Some people pass out. I never passed out. But the whole part when you just let your air out and sit there, it is the calmest, elated feeling. You just sit there in it. And you would think that you'd be gasping for air or whatever, but it isn't. It's almost like being in a pool and just floating. And it feels great.
Bring yourself to the point of hyperventilation? Because I've seen some people do the Wim Hof breathing, and it almost looks like that. Like my co-host on this show, he kind of pops in when he can. Have you back on because he's going to want to ask you all sorts of questions. But he does it, and he made this video where he has a swimming pool outside his house, and it was over, and he broke through it, and he did the breathing, the Wim Hof method, and then he climbed into the hole. And he did it again, and then he just went under, and he stayed down there for like a minute and popped back up. And it just looked like it wasn't even phasing him how cold it was, but it looks like he's hyperventilating when he does it. And
well, it does make you hot. So I could see how that would probably feel good because it does make you sweat. I did do, it was a different breathing method that I watched Seven Bomar do it. And he did say this is like an advanced breathing thing. And I was like, well, if I sampled out the others, I'm going to sample this one out too. And he was doing it like you do the cat-cow thing in yoga. So you're on all fours and you breathe in and you do the cat, you breathe out and you do the cow. And you do that a couple of different times. And then when you breathe in, you'll raise up and bow back. And I will tell you, I fell over. Because I didn't think it was going to hit me like that. I had no idea. I didn't feel like that. But as soon as I stood up, it was. Boop.
Was this in the middle of a yoga class with other people?
No, it was at my house. No. Because they would have been like, oh my God. No. So I did it here. I was shocked that it hit me that quick. I didn't think that it would, but it did. And so I started doing that, just to sample to see it, can I control that? Can I not do that as often? And you can get into a flow of it, but even like 3 or 4, I got to about 4 rounds of it. And by the 4th round, you're going to get pretty, dizzy or disoriented. And it can make you feel kind of nauseous. But I think that that's just a part of going through it, just, like an energetic thing, like a workout even. It's just you're going to feel a little bit nauseous to get all that sweat and stuff out of your body. So, but that was different than the Wim Hof, but the effects afterwards was the same. You felt rested afterwards.
Okay. So I think I want to just ask you a couple more questions about meditation and then move on into another subject that I'm dying to talk about with you. But when you started meditating and then you kind of incorporated it into your life as just kind of a routine, what kind of changes did that bring for you in your daily life?
I broke up with somebody.
I
did.
So it helped you see it from another perspective, or?
I just, I there was so much. It was there was just so much I wanted to explore after that, because I was like, I would tell them my experience, and they would just be like, I was like, what? No, what do you mean? No, you act like this is not a real thing. This thing happened. Like, I think I said that when I was talking to NY Patriot about the ball of light that came and smacked me straight in the face. And
Yeah.
I felt it. I felt it hit me. I seen it coming. I felt it hit me. It went through me. I felt that. But they were just like, okay, it's like, I don't think you get it. I don't think you know. This is, and I was like, and to make it so bad, like his family, what are they? They are Buddhists. I was like, you were never taught any of this? Nothing? It's like, okay, that's fine. And I just started doing my own thing more. I wanted to do this more. And the more I did that, the more it seemed to make them, which I know it was isolating for them, but they were going along lines of, oh, you're cheating on me. And I'm like, I'm reading a damn book. So I seen it and I was just like, okay, this is what it is. I'm getting kickback for removing myself from the game. The game don't want to let go, but I'm not going to hang in the game for this. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm letting go. So I just let go of it. And I'm fine with it. I'd rather, I've met a lot more people who understood what it was I was talking about and the experiences, and it kind of brought things into my life that I needed to keep my research going and bring me along the path than if I would have stayed onto that just simply because this person felt isolated. I was like, okay, well, you need to go on your own path. If you're feeling isolated, I can give you suggestions, but I can't be in a relationship with you.
And so is there anything else that like you had positive benefits from?
I did. I took a 3-month sabbatical from work, which I had that available to me. Not everybody else has that available to me. And when I came back in, I got a different position within the company, and that was completely better. That's also when I became like, I work from home now, but every now and then I would still have to go in the office. But now I don't have to go in the office ever. So there was a lot, and it did put me in contact with somebody who probably would be more of a relationship match kind of, like you meet people that are more in tune with where you're going and what you're looking for.
Was this through something like that?
Well, yeah, it was through, researching and stuff. Yeah. Which is, is great when you can find people that you can like have conversations with, because when you start going into this more, you find you have to shake off a lot to be free of it. And you get kind of, I don't even want to say lonely. It's just, you find something and you're like, oh my God, because it just clicks in your head, and you turn around and you're like, I don't have anybody to tell this to, because if I tell anybody, they're gonna be like, oh, I don't know what that means, or they're going to ask you questions. You're like, I can't explain this to you. So when you meet people that you can have a conversation with and they know exactly what it is you're going to say next, it like changes your whole perspective about everything. You're just like, okay, I found my people. You feel motivated, you feel supported, and it makes you even more eager to continue on your path, because your experiences help so many other people when they're not sure about it, or if they think their experience was maybe just an anomaly and it wasn't leading them anywhere, it was just something weird. But then when they hear it from somebody else, they're like, oh my God, okay, so I'm okay. Because we're all judging on what level we're at. I think that's just something in us all the time. We are always wanting to look back and see, did we get anywhere? Are we progressing? And I think after you let go of the things that have been holding you into this routine and being with people who are on your same path and perspectives, and their willingness to learn, just like your willingness to learn, is that eagerness and motivation. It helps propel you even further.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like part of this existence and this experience we're having, a lot of it has to be with like being felt and understood by, that's lacking, and that loneliness and isolation, it can be very debilitating. And that's one great thing about the internet. And I do think that the internet had very nefarious, the things that started the internet, it came from, whether it was a DARPA program or whatever, or Al Gore invented it. But to me, Twitter, like I hated social media. I think I had a MySpace for a few months. I was working on a documentary film back then, and I kind of got off of MySpace, and then Facebook and all those others came around, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. But after the podcast started, and my co-host's like, dude, get on Twitter. Very reluctant to, but as soon as I did, it just opened up a whole new, like, possibilities were limitless, because I just started meeting people almost immediately. And I have another podcast with a guy, Dusty. I might follow each other on Twitter. He does the Unspeakable Truth podcast. So we started the podcast together, and it's kind of just, it's starting to gather some steam now. We're actually having Mariam Hanane, who did the Vanishing. I don't know if you ever watched that. But she's making a documentary about George Floyd and like the weird and like weird suspicious stuff behind that. So we're having her on tonight. I think we'll see if that works out. But anyway, yeah, it's just him saying that to me and me being like, okay, getting on Twitter. And I had Twitter in 2019 because I was following the 2020 election pretty closely, so I kind of wanted to leave, but I never posted anything or did anything like that. But as soon as I did, I started getting invited on other podcasts, and then like reaching out to people like you. And it's just like, yeah, you find people who understand your experience and say, hey, maybe have you thought about it like this? And it's been a game changer for sure.
Twitter was the only one I kept.
Really?
Yeah.
Your art, that's your art behind you, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Is dream inspired? Meditation?
Yeah, I woke up from a dream, and you know how you just sit there with your eyes closed before you actually like get out of bed? That's what I seen.
Well, that's awesome that you have the ability to bring it into like the physical form and share it with other people, because that's rare, I think. Like, I can try to explain my dreams to people, but their eyes usually just glaze over. But if I could make something like that.
Oh yeah, sometimes it's hard to describe it, and it's hard to make it look the same, because in some of these places things are just like so much more vivid and crisp, and it's like when we look around in our world here, it's like 1960s television, and then you get into the other realms, and it's like, God, 4K,
HD, Blu-ray,
HD,
4K,
yeah, and it's like, wow, I thought I was living, but here, this is the real unlimited space.
Yeah, I had that the first time I smoked DMT, and when I try to explain it to people, it's like what you're saying. It's like you take this reality and you hold it up to that, and it's just, yeah, 1960s black and white TV. And I don't know, like when you go into those places, time and space, and just to understand how like malleable those two things really are. It's
you
weird,
live a whole lifetime.
Yeah, you can have a 15-minute, in this world, it's 15-minute DMT experience, but you just witnessed the creation and destruction of universes. And it took eons, but you saw it and you experienced it. Smoked DMT. When I got into that place, I felt like, oh my God, unbounded, and I'm home. And then when I got back to my body, it was like, oh, this is like foreign, and have a leg here, and I just wanted to go right back. Like, but we're all going to die eventually. So
See, and I'm more like, okay, I know that if that place exists, we don't, I think that that's exactly how this place is, but they've just overlaid it with so much crap that we don't get to experience what we really can be or are. So I'm more like, is there a way to open this up so that everybody can experience those experiences and to see that we don't even have to be living the way we are. We don't, even the aging process is like, I think they've done this. This is not a natural thing. I don't even think we have to age like this. And, regeneration of limbs and body. I think that's entirely possible. They just have made it to where they don't give us access to do that. They have it for themselves. And, I'm trying to, like that's what I get all in contention with is like, how can I open that up to bring that here? Because I think it is here. There's just this layer of stuff in the way of it. Like, how do we move that?
The way I just described it, it's like I separated that realm from this realm, but they're really not. They're really coexisting and kind of overlaid on top of one another. And that's a lot of my friends when we were doing all these they just wanted to always be tripping, and like they kind of just, this reality kind of seemed boring to them. And I tried to explain like, well, this is the trip. Like this right here, we came here to do this. And those cyclics and other methods, they're reminders of like what we really are and where we came from. But this is our experience right now, whether we like it, right? We do have the ability to make it heavenly or what it is right now. I mean, if you just pay attention to the news and look at what they want us to pay attention to all the time, there's no way in hell to be able to have a blissful experience. And of course, that's by design. And yeah, like on my other podcast, I was just talking about our mission is to just like wake people up to how ridiculous that dog and pony show is, like politics and the media. It's fucking hilarious.
It
And
is.
the fact that people take it so seriously is the problem. Like if you can't laugh at it and understand that this has been developed in a long 1930s and they wanted to just subvert any kind of like mental expansion into something greater. Like, I mean, when you meet those weird kids who got homeschooled and weren't allowed to watch TV and you make fun of them, it's like, you know what? Their parents were probably way smarter than yours. So even if they were like religious kooks, I mean, I don't know. But to like keep your kids away from this bullshit as long as you can, I think is very smart. As long as you can, I think is a very smart move. I can't imagine like not homeschooling at this point. If I was to ever have kids, it's just like,
Well, you have to even explain it to them. Like you have to let them know, okay, this is how fake this stuff really is. I need you to see that layer of filth on top of the realness. Like everything that you're looking at is nothing but a filter that they want you to see, that they think is real. So they need to be able to know this is a filter, this is life. Don't ever confuse the two. Because when you do, you're going to think that nasty film on top of the water is where you're living, and you're not. There's so much more depth to it. So don't ever confine yourself to this commercialized feeding frenzy around you, because that's not real. It's all made up. It's just like money. Money is air. It's just air. And they make you just chase air all the time. And then they conflate it by putting names on it and making you think, oh, I want this and I want that, because you're never wanting anything inside yourself. You're always wanting everything outside yourself. And by the time that you think that you've gotten everything you want, it's time to die. Is that how you want to spend your life? You don't want to do that. So let it go.
Well, I get to pass it on to my kids and my grandkids, and then they can repeat.
Yeah, it's like, no, we're just going to auction the shit off because we don't want it. we'll keep a couple things, but no, if it's just a bunch of the stuff that you really should be after and really treasure has nothing to do with money buying it.
Yeah. So I did want to say, because we kind of got off, that's fine, but I was talking about your art, and you said you got off all, like, no Instagram, nothing anymore, you're just on Twitter.
Yeah.
And a lot
Twitter.
of people would say that the Twitter is the worst of them, but and I kind of argue, like, yeah, it can be. There's like a lot of avenues you can go down. Like, I've used it to make connections. I've also pissed a lot of people off, and I think that's funny too. Like, I mean, for example, there's someone I'm kind of close with, and there is that, that trans person who just went to the White House and was talking to Joe, having kids' genitals mutilated. And this is like a influencer on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, gosh, what's his name? Tyler Fisher. That guy, he's a comedian in New York. He made a video mocking that, and it was just absolutely hilarious. And it was just like,
yes, the banana. Yeah.
Yes. So I know people who are kind of offended by that. You're telling people that they should mutilate their kids' genitals. I think that you open yourself up for ridicule. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's kind of fucked.
You putting yourself out there as a so-called influencer is putting yourself up for ridicule, period. So if you can't handle it, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to go there and be as blunt as possible, but if you can handle a dick in your ass, then you should be able to handle a word on a screen.
You would think so, right?
Right. And if you offend gay people, then you've gone too far. And that's where it's at. When legitimate people who are, transgendered or gay, when they find you disgusting, shit has gone too far.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, there's that stigma that homophobic America put around gay people, and they tied them to pedophilia. And now there's people that are like bringing that shit back. And it's horrible, because that isn't what it's like to gay or trans, is to want to fuck with kids. That's not what it's about, but they're making it that way. And you almost got to wonder, has it been co-opted by those very people that were trying to make it look that way in the beginning?
Well, yeah, they need you to look at the gay person next door because they don't want you to look at the politician you're voting for.
Yeah, that's very true.
They need somebody to blame it on. Definitely not them.
All right. Well, about retards on the internet, I think it's a good time to switch over to your Twitter handle. That when I first followed you, it really stuck out, because I can tell you're a very spiritually aware person. You've traveled these metaphysics. If you're all love and light, I don't remember exactly how you put it, but I'll just preface what you're going to say about all this with how I feel, because I live in Oregon. I grew up in southern Idaho. It's very conservative, and they all called me a hippie, and because I had long hair and I smoked pot. And then I moved to Eugene, Oregon, and I found out what hippies really are. And yeah, it's like, I'm a fucking redneck compared to you guys. I fit in with the rednecks, and I certainly don't fit in with the hippies. But the one thing that I saw that was so prevalent was all these people saying things like, into the universe, and they just wanted to steer clear of anything that they considered dark. And their reality is all love and light, and they live that way. And then when something happens and reality bites them in the ass, they're psychopaths, and they just snap because they don't know how to handle negative shit, and because they've ignored it their entire life. But you're going to have experiences. People aren't going to always agree with you. And anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent there, but what's your opinion on like this? It's kind of your new age bullshit that people feed to you. It's like all positive vibes. I love Carl Jung's psychology with like, the shadow work and the shadow self. And these people just want to fucking ignore that entire half of reality.
I mean, it's just the further division. It's what they don't, and God, they don't want to hear it. It's straight out of MK Ultra. It's like, you are in a cult. You know this, right? I mean, cults are have any perspective. All all they need is for you to be able to deny something so deep about yourself that you're willing to believe the bullshit they feed you, and you hang on to it. Baby with a bottle. That's all they got to do. And you're in a cult. So this love and light shit is a fucking cult. It's the Timothy Leary, Ram Dass. Oh, it's all love. No, it's not all love. Love is not what y'all think it is. Fucking everybody in the world and being like, oh, we can just have a big orgy because it's all great. No, it's not. That's not what it meant. That is totally not what it meant. That has nothing to do with it. And if you ever sat down with yourself and yes, face that dark stuff to where you can realize that all these different perspectives that you're trying to run away from are parts of yourself, then you would understand that judgment is just your intuition working. That no, you should not love everybody. That's not what the hell they meant. They didn't mean go have sex with everybody. They didn't mean that, oh, you can't be in a monogamous relationship. That's not what it meant. It meant that you don't go out here and take shit from people because you think you deserve more than everybody else. It doesn't mean that you totally rape a whole country because you want their goods. That's what it meant. But you want to go into this love and light. Okay, well, light can't exist if there is no dark. So you cannot exist if you do not have that dark in you. So you can't tell me that your life is so damn great that if I encroach upon your perspectives, you fucking wig out like a psychopath. You have a problem because you can't incorporate all yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how this is going to make me sound, but it's like when I get to my darkest points, that's where I learn. That's where I learn the most. It's those things, like you said, if the things that you want to ignore about yourself, about the world, they're just you. And that exists in every single one of us. But yeah, I mean, like getting back to psychedelics, I've had 4 hour just pure hellish experiences. But when I come out of them, that's like, it's like where I saw the most truth. Like out and just feel like infinite love. But that's just like a fix, you know. It's not showing me anything I don't know already. But those dark trips where I just want to die, and then you come out of that, I'm like, yeah, that to me that's the beauty of the world, is like looking darkness in the face and walking away from it. And like you said, you don't always walk away from it. I mean, we're talking about dreams and meditation, and that stuff's very real, where people might just crumble in front of darkness. But I don't know. I do know that people have snapped and not come out of those experiences the same. But for me, it was the most. And so when I see hippies in Eugene, Oregon telling me that I have bad vibes because I made a fucking off-kilter joke or, you know, what have you.
I really, that's fine. You're right. I am bobbing at a different rate than you. Mine does not get down with you. So, okay, that's fine. That just means that me and you just don't need to be having this conversation. It doesn't mean I'm bad, you're bad. But, you know, in their handbook, that's what it says. So it's like, that's fine. That's fine. Just don't have a conversation with me and I won't hurt your feelings.
Right. It could be that simple with everybody. So what do you think about like the co-opting of the, you know, I'm going to call it counterculture of the late 60s, early 70s, because it looked like there was serious momentum going on. And then we had MK Ultra. And one of my favorite topics I like to talk about whenever I can is the Laurel Canyon scene. Do you know much about that?
Oh my God. See, and this is where I think that they started introducing the ELF and the ultra low frequencies onto the sound alterings and stuff, because that's also where the Son of Sam ended up coming out, and Manson, and they all kept saying the same thing, that they heard voices inside their head telling them to do this and telling them to do that. So, I mean, back then it was more localized because they didn't have that great of a technology to where they could just sit in a remote location and just let it ride on the wind and catch whoever can hear it. Then they had to be, in that vicinity. And you could tell it because, just like you said, Laurel Canyon, they had to be in Laurel Canyon. Look how many of them it affected. And, just same in New York. That was
so you
right
think
there.
They picked that spot to co-opt culture because of like a certain level of frequency possibilities they could actually
the canyon, how it could echo.
I never thought of that.
Well, and it was easier too because they could have direct access to them. It's not like, look at the kids that they were going after. These kids had parents that were very influential and in certain areas of business where they could be easily blackmailed. And they were like, so they could just be like, look, you know what you were getting yourself into when you came in here. You wouldn't be in this position if you didn't give us certain liberties. Remember, you signed off your firstborn. This was the deal. So
exactly. Like people, because I read the David McGowan's book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon. It just shows all of the military intelligence connections to all of these. Most of them, I mean, I'm gonna say like blew up and ended up there. Like Jim Morrison's dad started the fucking Vietnam War, like, and none of them were great musicians to begin with. Like they had the wrecking crew come in. Yeah, and was that even real? Because like with Charles Manson, I don't know if you're familiar with Chaos, Tom O'Neill's book, where he talks about the direct intelligence ties with Manson and how he was using MK protocol and keep them up on meth and then give them the LSD. And who the fuck knows if any of those people really even were at Cielo Drive that night. Like satanic, like fucking intelligence hit, and maybe those people were integral. It doesn't really matter. They were either weaponized or not there, as far as I'm concerned. But
it goes back to the entire hippie movement and how it's still here. They just use the same tactics because these whole love and light people, they're not sitting around. I mean, yeah, they might be meditating, but half the time, yeah, they are high or hopped up on something all the time. And they're only reading reinforcements. Now, repeating stuff to reinforce a narrative is right out of the playbook. So it's just regenerating itself. And they introduced it. They got it caught on. They can that's not even their project anymore. They don't even need to handle it.
No,
it handled itself.
They walked away from it, and it's just going to perpetuate forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I still know people who chase the surviving members of the Grateful Dead. Like, oh, Bob Weir's on the road. I better go watch him. And they're like fucking 20 years old. It's like, why are you so attached to this bullshit?
Because they don't read.
Yeah.
It's like
they're reading the wrong shit. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think most of them read. I mean, people just don't read anymore.
No, that's been like, if it's not a 30-second TikTok, they're like, oh, that's just rumors. It's like what you just listened to was yeah, that's when you're just like, okay, all right, well, you're gonna have to learn the hard way, and that's your path, and I'm okay with it. But I'm still there too at the end when I say I told you so, because I'm gonna do it.
So do you think we're fucked with like the TikTok generation? These kids are in their teens right now. Like, what is there going to be a backlash against that? Or
well, yeah, because that's the easiest thing to do is to, I mean, first of all, you already had the conformist education, like put them in a box so they can know what a cubicle feels like by the time they get out, put a computer in front of them so that they know that they're going to have to be attached to that thing for the rest of their lives. And that's the only way they're going to make money. But now you got goldfish brains right behind the computer. So as soon as they stand up, they forget what the hell they were doing. And the only thing they know is that computer. So they just sit back down and do it again. So are they going to be able to have a productive life? Some of them, if they wake up and, that's their thing, is trying to cut down the ratio of the ones that are going to end up waking up.
Yeah, I mean, you have kids, I don't. So, I mean, I can look at it objectively and feel like slightly hopeless, but at the same time, the Applegate Valley is between where I live and the Pacific Ocean, and it's just like a bunch of farmers and people doing their own thing and they don't let their kids have. It just looks like maybe they're few and far between, as if you like compare it to everybody on the planet right now who gives their kids smartphones when they're 10 or even younger. I don't know. It might be younger.
Oh no, they give them tablets. Yeah,
Oh yeah, my sister's kid. I bought a tablet a few years ago, and I was kind of figuring out. She was 3, and she just grabbed it from me, and she just fucking knew how to do it.
She's straight on YouTube watching some box opening of a toy. She's like, yeah, see how I do this.
Oh, it's natural to her. Like, oh, you hit this and this and this, and it's like, is it designed that way? Like, I'm a little too old for the tablet because I figured it. Yeah, I use a flip phone because I had a smartphone for a while, and I just felt like having that fucking thing in my pocket all the time. First of all, I forgot what being bored feels like. Like you go to the bank, you're waiting in line, you just whip out your phone and start fucking around the internet. It's like that's when creativity strikes, when you're bored.
Well, even doing that, you get bored because you're like, I'm reading the same old stuff over and over again. It's like I'm bored. So yeah, you start putting it down to go find stuff to do because you're bored because the phone makes you bored.
Well, I hope people reach that point. I mean,
oh God,
it seems like the feed of social media is just forever if you let it be. I mean, you'll never look at, even though it's like low in substance, it's so fucking prevalent that you can never run out of shit to look at. Just useless shit.
And then cleverly repetitive. Because the algorithm has to keep certain keywords in there because they need to be able to map this, and they know where they're driving narratives, so they know what words and phrases to interject in there. But like with kids, I mean, my thing is you can't lie to them about any of it at all. So
then it becomes the forbidden fruit.
Well, right. Well, you have to be like, okay, look, you are wanting so-and-so, product because, teenage, whenever that stuff happens, because we were just like that. We want this brand of this brand of that. And they're like, Victoria's Secret things is the perfect example. They think, oh, I want this little body spray. All my friends have this lotion. It's like, okay, yeah, but the pedo that runs the company is, housing little boys, and those girls that you think are girls, those are the little boys. He gave them sex changes, so they keep their mouth shut. So he propped them up with money. Is that what you want? This is what the life is. And yeah, at first they're gonna be like, what? I'm not. Why'd you even have to tell me that? They're still gonna want it, but then they'll come back and ask them questions. Yeah. So
that's like, great. Les Wexner deserves to be fucking shouted out.
But it's just like all of them. And it's like, I even want to take it down even to the school level, like even the teachers and stuff, because teachers, they'll fall in with the whole narrative of the situation too. And it surprises me that they still think that parents won't question what it is that they tell your kid. And it's like, I'm one of the parents that'll come right down in there, find that teacher and say, me and you going to have a sit down. And one of us is going to come out of here understanding what the other one has to say, because I'm not going to, I'm not handing my child over for a second. Don't even think this is how it's going to be. You just need to teach my child because I have patience issues and I can't do it. I'm not a great teacher. So it's like that. Because you will see a lot. It's shocking to me that there are a lot of parents that will look at you and not understand that. I will say my peeve, and I know that you were in school during the same thing. Remember, we had it's like the AR program where you have to read certain books.
Accelerated reader.
I hated that crap. Reader.
Yeah.
Like even in school, I protested it. I went to summer school because I wasn't doing that crap. I'm like, no, I will read what I want. You don't tell me what I'm going to read. And so even now, I'm still having to do with that. And a teacher, like my child, of course, is the same way. She's not going to do it. She's like, I'm not going to read what it is they want me to read because they just told me I had to read a certain amount of nonfiction and fiction. And I was like, okay, no. And the one teacher said, it's sad that you don't have any points. So I was like, oh, okay, me and her's going to have a chat. I was like, look, accelerated reader, I understand y'all push that all the time, but I'm not boxing my child into what it is she wants to read and explore, and you shouldn't either. And for you to tell her your own opinion on how you feel is irrelevant to the whole matter itself. So do not express your opinions to my child. If she does not have any points, I'm perfectly fine with that, because it contributes zero to her learning what she needs to learn. So you teach what you need to teach. She will learn what she needs to learn, and she will read what it is she wants to read.
Yeah, I mean, just a whole point system on certain literature and whatnot.
Exactly.
It's kind of, they started it even earlier. Do you remember Book It? With the pens,
Yes.
and you could go get free Pizza Hut once you got 5 stars and shit like that.
So this is how they teach you as a little child, that you're only supposed to read and have these certain interests, so that when you're older, it just carries over. So now you're stuck watching the news.
Right. And to associate like reading points with fucking getting greasy bullshit food that's not even real food.
Yeah. And of course, they're going to associate it with pizza, of course.
Right. Oh shit, another connection. I just watched Tim Dillon's he finally got a Netflix special. You know Tim Dillon?
I've heard him, but no.
So he's like this big old fat dude. He's a gay comedian. He's fucking hilarious. And he just had a Netflix special, and he's talking about, yeah, my fucking parents, they were so messed up that we actually went and ate at Pizza Hut inside the restaurant.
Hey, but they probably served beer, so that's why.
Hey, you remember, my mom always tells me this story. She said we were at Pizza Hut once, and there's a little kid there at the salad bar, stuff on the floor, and the little kid was picking it up and putting it back in the salad bar. She's like, I never fucking had another salad there again.
Like, come on now, that's just natural immunity.
That just happens, right? That just happens, right? That's just Garrett's doing a damn thing. All right, so I did want to talk about, and this is going to be wide and go wherever with it, but I'm really big into simulation theory, and hearing you. So I listened to your 2 deep shares yesterday, and kill the narrative. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So good. It's like, I love that guy. He's like, I don't know, he's got this like WWF Chuck Ocelli type voice where he's just like, and I've heard him because I'm kind of Twitter friends with Chud X and Lonnie. I don't know if you know Washington State. And they had a swap cast with Deep Share and his wife too. And it was just like, that's kind of how I heard them the first time. And listening to him back, I hadn't got to your episode yet until you and I started talking on Twitter, but the kill the narrative stuff and all the talk about the UFOs, or what do they call them? UAPs in the media?
Yeah, that's what they call them, yeah.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on like, what the fuck is going on there? Is this a simulation? Like, what is life? And when I say simulation theory, everybody goes to computers, but I mean, you go back into like the Gnostic religion, where it's just kind of like simulation could be anything, but or it could just be our way of understanding reality. Like, we're not in control. We can control certain things and like walk certain paths, but there's an overlying, I don't know what.
The overlay is the simulation, and they're trying to make the simulation more palatable by putting the simulation is like the layer between us and actuality. So the chemtrails, what better a way to make the whole sky a screen by putting metals into the sky so that you can have something to project on.
So you think that's what's going on there? Is it stuff that we're supposed to breathe in, or is it more about that?
I think it's all of it, because you're not supposed to breathe anything that's inside your TV. That stuff, it's all chemicals. You're not supposed to breathe it, more or less eat it, but they don't give a shit because we're eating it all the time. That's why we got microplastics in our blood system, because we're not even eating real food. So they just gradually sprinkle stuff in so that you become more accepting of it. And the more craziness. Like even a couple years back, I started noticing like the thunder just did not seem right anymore. Thunder did not seem like thunder. I was like, it seems contained. Like there's no way in hell it seems like I'm in a bowling alley and the ball comes back. That's not right. That's not how thunder's supposed to do. Thunder's supposed to roll, not roll and come back. But that's how it was doing. And it took like 2 years before actually somebody remembered me saying that and was like, you know what? I thought about that the other day. And yes, the thunder does not sound right. Why does it sound like that? And it's just like that, how people are now seeing it rain just in one block. The more you are accustomed to that, the less you're going to think it's something abnormal. And so the more that they can control normal everyday things and pass it off as some type of weather phenomenon, because that's where you're going to need to start. You're going to need to start there. They cannot have their fake invasions or control over the weathers and control over you as a person unless they have control over what you see and what you think is normal. So that's the first place they're going to start, is right above you. But at the same time, you got to look underneath you, because there are all these cables all the way underneath us. All the frequencies are traveling right underneath our feet. So we're right in between, we're sandwiched right in between them. So everywhere we go, that energy and that static, we're like little conductors running their energy program. So as soon as they have that set up, they're ready to go. So I think the simulation, I don't think it's a theory, it's a work in progress.
Okay, so we're not in pods somewhere?
We're in pods everywhere. I mean, it's just, I think that's another thing that they've captured that they limited us with is, like, have you ever read Diary of a Yogi, the Yogananda book? Yeah, he talks about one of his mentors being in multiple places at the same time, because your consciousness, it can travel anywhere. All you have to do is grab the light, though, to, fashion your body, the light and the frequency, and put it together. Like, how skilled do you have to be for that to happen? Because that is awesome. I don't know how, but that is an achievement. I would love to know how to do that. And for all we know, well, that's probably how we can, period, because we're asleep, we're here, but we're also somewhere else simultaneously. So how can that really occur? It does. So how can you do it in your waking life? You probably could, but they have...
Or you're doing it all the time and you don't know.
Well, right, because you're not really here and I'm not really there, but we're still here. So we're projecting bits of ourselves everywhere all the time. We're just not attaching our light to it. So if we honestly knew how to do that, that would be a total game changer.
Have you ever heard the theory that you never die? You die in this realm, you just skip to the next one and wake up and to you it's nothing, but you just left a bunch of sad relatives behind in this realm.
Yes.
You have no. So what do you think about that?
I don't see why that wouldn't even be a thing too, because how many times have you woken up in a dream? So a dream within a dream.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem any different to you. And I've even explored
the fact in my real life and had to figure out where I am. That's been happening to me a lot lately, and it's I don't want to say it's scary, but it's kind of unnerving. Like I have to remember where I am and what I just did the night before and what today is. And I don't know if that's part of aging.
No, because I've had that. I've had that happen. I think it's happening to a lot of other people a lot more now. So it's not so isolated to us that just, know that there's different parallels of things, because I have had conversations where I know good and well I had that conversation. I can feel it, smell it, taste it, hear it, all of it. I was there. We had this conversation. And I could have it with my family. And I've said this. I was like, do you not remember us having this conversation where you gave such and such this box of such and such? And they're like, that did not happen. And I'm like, the hell it didn't. It happened. I was there. It happened. And recently, it was even down to a jacket. I had put on a hooded jacket, zipped up jacket, just because it was cooler that morning. Went to the store. It got hot. Threw the jacket in the back of my car with the groceries I had to bring inside. So when I got out of the car, I, of course, like a normal person, looked at the jacket and was like, damn, do I need to leave it in here or should I bring it in? But I knew if I left it out there, it's just going to sit out there with the, and I'm going to have laundry out in my car by the end of the week if I don't take it in. So I did. Later on that night, I went looking for the jacket because it was just cold in the house. I could not find it. I was like, whatever. I'm just going to grab a sweatshirt because I'm lazy. So I did. That morning, I went to find the jacket again. No jacket. I went through the laundry. I went through my closet. I went through the washer and dryer. I was like, no, okay, whatever. Grab the sweatshirt again, walk outside. Back seat is that damn jacket. And I know good and well, I folded it up, put it across my arm. It was across 2 bags of groceries. And brought it inside. I felt the metal of the zipper on my arm coming in my house. And yet that didn't happen. There's no way. But it didn't. It, apparently, not to the world I woke up in that day. It was out in the car.
So what kind of credence do you give to Mandela effect, if any?
A lot. Because I just don't think it takes that much. And I'm going to throw it all off too. And this is probably going to sound left field. I think the Department of Energy is more like the Department of Time Management.
You want to go into that a little bit?
Well, they have a lot of involvement in these colliders. And
like CERN.
Yes. And you wouldn't even think, everybody thinks, okay, the Department of Energy must be like, the power company. No, these people are into everything, even down to diseases. Why would they be down into diseases? That's funny. That doesn't seem like their department, but it is. They even have their own intel. Why? Why would they even have counter intel at that? Why? Well, because I think the whole Manhattan Project was the DOE. That they didn't become the DOE until after the atomic commissions. That is what they were over there doing, messing with time, trying to figure out how it was that they could incrementally change or alter time. And I'm even thinking down to the fact that there are some of us who are more conductive than others. And in order to not have the timelines or dimensions collapse upon one another, you're going to have to move people between these dimensions, because they know the amount of influx, the amount of people born and the amount of people who die, that they need to have that balance. And so when you're going in and thinking, I swear Pikachu had a black tail, another person's like, no, he didn't. He probably did, but they needed to move you in order to keep the balance.
The Bernstein Bears is the one that fucking got me.
And I know good and well was not AI because that
would
make sense.
It was
as a
exactly.
Kid.
I said to my mom early on, like, well, it's Bernstein, and she was, that conversation wouldn't have happened if it was AI.
Exactly, because that is how I figured out if there's E before an I is pronounced E.
Yeah,
and if it's I before,
yeah.
I was
That's
like,
a great example.
I would have never, because when I was a kid, I could not figure that out. And that's how I figured it out. So no.
Yeah, that one, my brother, he came to me a few years back, probably 2015-ish, and he told me about the Mandela effect. I had never heard about it. Mandela effect, I had never heard about it. And he starts naming examples, and he says he had my full attention. So we text my sister who has kids, and she has all her books from when we were little. And I said, send me a picture of a Bernstein Bears book, and she did, and it had like an existential meltdown over that. It was too much.
Well, that's even the most recent one I heard was the Twilight Zone. That the whole beginning of that where he says, imagine if you will. They were like, he never said that. I'm like, the hell he didn't.
So that's
Yes, he
does he not say it if you go back and watch him now?
no.
Oh, that's a bit much for me too. That's one of my favorite shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a lot. Maybe that contributes to, me too, because when I was a kid, my grandparents were like, yeah, we watched that. I watched that. Like I watched a lot of it. And yeah, that's the first thing when you think of him, that's exactly the phrase that comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's some others too, but for me, it was the Bernstein Bear. Oh, another recent. Oh, another recent was is the Britney Spears.
Oh, the skirt.
Yeah, it was plaid, right?
That's what I thought. It was
But
plaid.
everybody's saying like, no, that's just the prototypical Catholic schoolgirl outfit, so that's how you remember it. And Britney Spears even remembers it, but I don't know.
Well,
I thought that was a joke when I saw it online.
I thought that's why Clueless came out around the same time. It was like, well, now Clueless makes no sense for them to be wearing all that damn plaid because it seemed to be coinciding with the same era and the same press.
Yeah, I never made that connection. That's very true. All right. So let's get into aliens. In your opinion, and I have heard you talk about this a little bit, and my audience may have, what the fuck is going on with let's move from so to me, I was talking to Dusty, my co-host on Disinfobation, about this and what I think was going on in the late 40s with Roswell and all that stuff. I really think that Crowley and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, I think that Crowley opened a portal and closed it. But he showed these other guys how to do it, and they didn't close it. And I think that's what Roswell was about, green men from outer space. I think it was mainly about a portal, but I mean, that's just my opinion on the matter. And I think that's like when we kind of crossed over into this era. And you're talking about the DOE, and I don't know like when they started, but do you know? Like when they were founded?
Officially they founded themselves in the 70s, but before then they were the Atomic Commission. So they've been around forever. They just changed their name. Kind of like Atomic. UFOs, UAPs, all this. Yeah, they like to change names so that you can never follow the chain of custody.
Okay, so yeah, why don't you just tell us what you think about UFOs, aliens, and what's going on here?
I would think that if we're still seeing flying saucers, aliens must be really fucking stupid because their technology has not advanced one damn bit. So that leads me to believe it's all a bunch of re-engineering. It's military, secret, advanced stuff that they have, like drones, different types of weapons. They know they don't want to give up the fact that they are so more advanced that it would freak everybody the hell out, but they've been that advanced.
So like the tic-tac and all that shit.
Yeah, right.
And the disclosures on the news.
It's easier to go ahead and introduce the term, oh, it's a UFO. Okay, yeah, it is a fucking unidentified flying object, but that don't mean it ain't from here. It just means you don't know what the hell you're looking at. Okay, well, if it's some military tech that you've never heard of or never seen, then that's exactly what it is. But they were like, oh, okay, let's just introduce, some little green men. We'll say they did it. I mean, it's easy as hell to blame it on something that can't come out of the woodworks and say, no, we didn't. You're holding something accountable that can't even defend itself. So that's in of itself a total BS narrative. But two,
it's like the ultimate. Yeah, it's like the ultimate conspiracy straw man argument. Fucking little
green men. But then you also have the fact that you are also using a group thought in order to create for you. Because if enough people think something exists, that damn thing's going to exist sooner or later.
Yeah.
So you're going to have these things that end up somehow, somewhere popping up just out of that group thought. And to make it easier, they gave us what the stupid things look like. Well, look, they look like this. It's like, oh, you drew it out, just like the Bible. They're like, oh, demons look just like this. Next thing you know, everybody's seeing just like this. It's like, yeah, because they've printed it all out for you. You're still following this manuscript because they know that stuff like that is possible, but they want you to think what they want you to think, because if you were able to do that for yourself in that same group thought, we wouldn't be stuck where we're at. So, I mean, it's entirely possible for all kinds of things to exist just because we can only see what we, one, are familiar with, and two, our eyes are limited to. But that doesn't mean we don't come in contact with all kinds of things, because we do. So I'm not going to rule out that there's other things that exist. They just are not going to come out like that. There's no purpose. They're just flying around and they crashed. Are you serious? Were they drunk? I mean, then that makes them like a person. So there's just too many personal elements to it. So I think it's all a narrative. And yeah, like Crowley and them, they were playing around with stuff. They had complexes, superiority complexes. They want to be bigger in life. And yeah, I mean, they got into situations just like the politicians and other, they're going to get gobbled up by the system because they've compromised themselves. But what I've looked at recently, especially with Crowley, what made it so odd is I had this, I don't even want to call it a download of information, but it's just like
that's what hippies say.
I know. I had when you're just brainstorming on a concept or whatever. So for 4 days, I had this thing about circles and lines, and it came down to the torus field and the pole and the torus field around it. So that went into the whole I am situation, but you go into the L, which is the electricity, and what that pole with the torus, what the torus wraps itself around is electricity, which would be L, and then am, which is lamb. And I was like, that's funny, because that's exactly what not Parsons, but Crowley called that little stupid character. He called it lamb. But then the electricity, the L, is the male, and the torus is the female. So when I was looking at this thing, I couldn't help but to think, that thing looks like a uterus. I was like, which would make perfect sense for him to demonize females altogether, because he was too busy wanting to have sex with animals and men. And that was his whole thing. You go in through the outdoor. It's a spiritual experience. It's like, for you, maybe. But I'm not screaming, oh, God, in the butt. That's not happening. So now I'm thinking it's a whole different type. It's more of another way to confuse and obfuscate ways to get an understanding on how the energy in our system works, and why it is completely free, because it's everywhere around us, because they too, for some reason, were involved in the military industrial complex. Well, how funny is that? And then, NASA. And then you got the other one, who's a cult leader.
You talk about L. Ron Hubbard?
Yeah. So that's, wow. You got the three stooges. One of them's NASA. One of them's some weird, magician. And then you got the cult leader. It's like, these three people are the three people of your time, but all of them also had everything to do with the military, and they're bringing up aliens. So it's like, okay, were they all just CIA?
I mean, for me, Werner von Braun, he's the most suspect. They all have Crowley influences. Jack Parsons, I know a little bit about him. L. Ron Hubbard, total quack. But I mean, and people even laugh at Scientology today, like mainstream laughable notion. But the fact that these three people kind of kind of just totally co-opted me back in that day. And I mean, whether they really opened up a portal or not, it doesn't really matter. They opened up a portal into our head because I mean, we're still fixated on the stuff that went. But I don't know. Are you a Stranger Things fan?
I am, yeah.
So what do you think about like what's the like, because you know it's Montauk. They wanted to call the show Montauk, and like what do you think? Is this predictive program or just kind of softening us up for something that's coming? What's your opinion on it?
If anything like that comes, I think that it's going to be wrapped up with the simulation thing, just like, you know, how they are coming out being like, oh, we've got to have some type of defense system for aliens. So they've already put it out there that these things are up to no good. Look, they're going to abduct you. They're going to do science projects on you. They've already injected that into us to have that fear that anything that comes is not going to be for the betterment of anything, which if it's them in control, no, it's not, because it's the government and they've never bettered any damn thing but their own selves. But they want that fear there. It's just another layer of control. There are things that you can go in and mess with, and you could bring stuff through if you're not, which goes back to you have to know yourself and that you are in control of everything and everything within yourself. Because if you go around thinking that how people will try to call on angels and not knowing that this whole angel angle situation is like a one and the same, like angels have angles because, you know, it's like a con man. When you're not in control of your energy and you're letting it flow everywhere, things can attach to that. And we just don't have the ability to see what's coming back at us. So they could open portals, which would just bring in like ideas, influences, energetics that aren't going to be in our favor for sure. But they were just using it to try to prop themselves up, which didn't do them very well at all. So it's like I call scientists, they're like the low level, like scientists are like witches, physicists are magicians, and then you've got these sorcerers at the top, and they're all in the same game. They just want to call it something else, and it's like it's all down to alchemy.
So do you think science is sorcery?
It's alchemy, yeah. I think that's exactly what it is, but they try to, you know, dress it up, make it a conspiracy, or they're going to make it something out of reach or demonize it. And that's the easiest way to keep it in control is, you know, add that fear, and then you throw in religion with it too, and that makes it double taboo.
All right. Well, I think we've said a lot of good stuff. I want to close out with any type of, I want to call it extraterrestrial, but whatever you want to say, alien, extraterrestrial. The last Kill the Narrative episode, I think ultra terrestrial is a new one for me. But have you had experiences with the outer, like life forms that you know for a fact are not from this realm, and all your dreaming and meditating in other realm track?
I will say yes, not a visual thing, but it was a dream. I was pulled out of a dream I was having, and as soon as I was pulled out of it, I see I'm in something, and it has this huge window. It's huge window, and I'm looking down on Earth. I can see the whole planet.
Flat or round?
It was flat. But
wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I could see the different layers of the atmosphere and everything, but when I looked, there was all these rainbow vortexes were everywhere, just like rainbow tornadoes. They were just everywhere. And I couldn't see who was saying it or what was saying it, and I didn't bother to ask because I'm like, I'm receiving a message. who it is telling me is irrelevant. That's not the point. But they said this is what they want to do, and as soon as they said that, the rainbow vortexes started combining and spinning together, and they started to get closer and closer until they were one big vortex. And as soon as that happened, the sun got super bright, just beaming white, and a beam shot straight out of the sun and into that vortex, and the vortex just glowed. And I woke up and I was like, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do with this? What does that mean? And of course,
could mean so much.
I know, my sister was like, you got abducted, which is I was like, no, I didn't, but I know I wasn't in anything that we have, of course, because I could see everything, and it was animated at that. So I'm just like, what was I supposed to see here? What am I supposed to get from that? And of course, after the fact, you're like, well, who was even talking to me? But at this point, it's like, I don't care who was talking to me. Just keep feeding me the information because I want to know.
Well, I mean, my thoughts go to what we were talking about earlier with CIA recruiting people, astral projecting, and all that stuff. This is what they want. And if you take all of those people that are able to have their own little personal rainbow vortexes and combine it, the outcome of that.
Yeah. It's like a big energy vortex.
Well, Brandy, you have one of your kids just came into the room. If you want to cut it right now, we can do this again. I'd like to get you back on when I have my co-host with me, because he's really into all this kind of stuff. And we've got a solid couple hours. It's been awesome talking to you. And I'm going to get my microphone cord fixed next time. So, is there anything you want to say to close out? You want to plug your art or anything else?
I post it sometimes, so if people want to see it, you can just go over to my Twitter and scroll through. And if I have dreams or if I'm just playing around, sometimes I'll post it. I do post my dreams sometimes just so I can get feedback of what other people think it could be, because some other people's perspectives can really just get it going and unfold with some other dreams coming. So, but that's really all I have. I just have my Twitter.
All right, and that's at AK
Brandy Renee. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll put that in the show notes, and I'm gonna work on getting this most recent disinfobation episode. Will be the next thing I work on. So hopefully by early midweek we'll have this out, and I'll tag you in it and let you know when it drops. And thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, no problem. I loved it.
Yeah, I'd like to do it again very much.
All right.
Well, have a great weekend.
Oh, you too.
All right.
All right.
We'll talk to you later.
All right.